What's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope you all have had a great Saturday. I'm here with the evening update on what's going on with what is now Tropical Storm Elsa. It was technically still a hurricane when I had the morning update this morning at a 75-mile-per-hour storm, but now it is technically a 70-mile-per-hour storm per the 5 p.m. update. So by the time some of you guys watch this on the 8 p.m. update, maybe it gets downgraded to a 65-mile-per-hour storm, but I have a feeling it's probably going to stay around the same. So before we get deep into this video, we're going to discuss everything, what's going on now, the updated models, what looks different than maybe it did this morning, what's the health of the storm. We're going to go through everything, and we're going to start to look ahead at impacts for the southeast. And obviously this thing is going to impact Jamaica, so if you're in Jamaica, definitely expect impacts from a high-end tropical storm, a low-end hurricane, and obviously Cuba, the entire country of Cuba is definitely going to be affected by this tropical system. So heads up on that. But before we get deep into this, if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Your support is definitely appreciated. And I upload videos every single day, sometimes twice a day, depending on how active it is, like it is now. So your support is definitely appreciated. Like the video if you like it. And thank y'all for the amazing support like y'all have given over the last few weeks especially. So thank y'all. But here we go. So this is Elsa, tropical storm, 70-mile-per-hour storm. We look at the latest update. This is what's going on. The cone has it going, has Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, all the way up to Virginia, even Maryland, to the cone of uncertainty. So obviously once it gets into this part of the cone, it gets really uncertain, right? So that's typically how it is. It's the cone of uncertainty. So I know I got a lot of people who view from South Carolina and the southeast. Keep in mind, this is going to wiggle back and forth, but most of y'all are in the cone. Unless you're in Alabama and Mississippi, you're not in the cone of uncertainty right now. But like I said, 70-mile-per-hour storm, and this thing is still moving at about 28 miles per hour. But let me tell you, it's starting to slow down now. So here's a closer up look right now of it. The actual spin, the actual low pressure, the low level circulation of the storm. So what we go off of is just south of basically this peninsula of Haiti right here. So it's right in here. If you look really closely, you can see the little spin right there. And there's a little bit of convective explosion going on right there, but this is where it is. This is not vertically stacked. This is still a very disorganized storm. You basically still have the low-level circulation racing out in front of the mid-level circulation to its southeast. So that's a sign of a disorganized storm. It's not a healthy storm, therefore it's no longer a hurricane. It's also bits and pieces of it are interacting with Haiti, Hispaniola, and it's going to continue to be kind of interacting with land. Now will the center, the low-level circulation go over land? I actually think it's going to miss Hispaniola, but it's going to start to flirt with Cuba and Jamaica now. I don't think it's going to go over Jamaica. Jamaica will be affected, but I think the low-level circulation will definitely go over Cuba here in the next 12 to 18 hours. But this storm is going to begin to slow down. There is going to be a brief period where it's going to have a chance to intensify a little bit once it gets into these open waters right into here. It is dealing with a little bit of dry air right now. This storm has always been dealing with shear. Most tropical systems all deal with shear, but how strong that shear is depends on if it's going to be a weaker storm or a stronger storm. But when you got a low-level circulation like this racing out in front of the mid-level circulation, which is over here, it's going to get exposed to shear because it doesn't have any convection really covering up or creating a barrier around the center circulation of the storm. So a little bit of a broader look like we were looking at in the beginning of this video. Like I said, this is going to move into some pretty warm waters here. But this system as a whole, this is what we're talking about. So it still looks like a tropical storm, but it definitely does not look like a hurricane like it did maybe this time yesterday. So going forward here, let's go on and start looking a little bit further. Like I said, the actual center of the circulation is just south of Hispaniola. It's moving at about like this direction right here. So northwest, and I think it's going to either nick it, Hispaniola here, or Haiti, or either it's going to move just south of it. But it's still going to be interacting with these mountaintops. Even when the outer edges of the storm interact, it doesn't like any high mountaintops. It doesn't like land. If the land was flat, I think that would make a little bit of a difference, but it's not. Intensity models, here we go. So most of them keep it at a tropical storm now. Now some of these models have it at a Category 1, a couple, but most keep this as a tropical storm the whole duration of the storm now. As far as the paths, they have ticked west a little bit. It's very interesting. But, you know, I'm going to talk about once the storm gets through Cuba, there is going to be a brief period of that it can still intensify in the eastern Gulf of Mexico before it potentially hits Florida, which it likely will hit Florida. I wouldn't even call it a potential now. It's likely that this thing is going to go over Florida. I don't see it going way over here and just missing Florida altogether. I really don't. I think Florida, you're going to get hit by a tropical storm here in the next few days. That's for sure. So as far as how these sea surface temperatures are, right now the storm is right in this area. That's still sea surface temperatures in the low to kind of mid 80s. One thing I want to mention is it's going to move into these waters. Obviously, if it just cruises over Cuba, it doesn't matter how warm these waters are. It's the center of circulation isn't over the water. But if it kind of stays into this area, it still won't strengthen much. But it will, I think, remain intact somewhat if it can stay south of Cuba before it cruises over this area of Cuba right here and gets into the Gulf of Mexico. Waters here into the mid to even upper 80s in some areas. So the water is definitely warm enough. It's almost hot and uncomfortable, I'm sure, for development, for sure. So looking here, as you can tell, like I said, these are the waters right in here that are very warm, but it's going to fight interaction with land. Now, let's look at this. I'm kind of all over the place, ain't I? So right here, as far as why it's heading where, I'm going to show you this. You have the flow from the subtropical ridge, and I've broken this down in many of the videos, but I like to explain it to a lot of people who have not watched the previous videos. It's working its way into the weaker area of a ridge of high pressure. In this case, it can kind of work itself into this, and it begins to slow down because it isn't being influenced by this flow right here working around the ridge of high pressure. It is being influenced, but at the same time, it's getting away from the grip of it being influenced. It's getting influenced in a way where it's able to move northwest because of this flow, this don't get me wrong, this southeast flow around this ridge of high pressure. Then it goes to north, and it goes to a northeast flow. So therefore, this flow is kind of pushing Elsa that way. Now, once it gets away from that a little bit, it begins to kind of create its own path, if you will. It's able to get away from the highest areas of influence from the directional steering currents of high pressure to its east. So, but it's still kind of working its way into weak ridging, and then it's able to start to move north and get affected by many things. There's a weakening trough in place, and it's just still kind of it's able to kind of work its way around the ridge of high pressure still, even though it's way over here. Therefore, it begins to kind of tick around it, if you will, and slowly, as it's slowing down, begin to move north and then northeast into Georgia, into the Carolinas. So here's the latest GFS. At the end of the day, what do we got going on here? Because I know to some people that doesn't make a ton of sense what I just explained, and I understand that completely. Trust me, I'm always learning too. I'll tell you what, the GFS for a few days now has had this thing working in between Cuba and Jamaica. And the latest GFS has it staying south of Cuba for the most part as a tropical storm. But then again, it's still interacting with land. This is a simple factor into the tropics, right? Land interaction. Most people know that tropical systems can't thrive or survive over land. They develop over water, and that's just a simple concept, right? But the thing is especially if this storm isn't vertically stacked and it's not able to protect itself almost, any interaction with land, even if the center of circulation isn't necessarily over land, it's going to hamper any intensification. It might not weaken much, but it's definitely not going to strengthen much. So the GFS, as early as Monday morning, begins to work what's left of Elsa over Cuba. It almost has Elsa weakening altogether. Then it gets into the eastern Gulf of Mexico by Tuesday morning. Acts like, I've seen this is kind of weird. Check this out. It kind of bumps back west. So Tuesday morning, it's sitting just off the coast of Tampa Bay, but then it kind of ticks back west and then kind of moves into kind of almost like the armpit area between the peninsula and the panhandle of Florida. Works its way in, throws some tropical moisture in Georgia and the Carolinas, and then it's on out of here. So if you live in Georgia into the Carolinas, I think Wednesday morning into Wednesday overnight will be the day that you're affected somehow by tropical moisture from Elsa. Now, as far as winds, I don't know that yet. Nobody does. As far as a tornado threat, depends on what quadrant of the side you're on. Nobody really knows that yet because we can't even figure out when it's going to really begin to turn north and what is it going to do in the Gulf of Mexico. So here comes the European, same kind of track as the GFS, makes its way into southwest Florida and rides into Florida. Then it actually gets off the coast of northeast Florida here in Georgia and South Carolina, and actually might try to intensify again. And like I said, throws moisture into Georgia, into the Carolinas. The Canadian likes this east route. I mean, really, the Canadian has this thing actually overnight tonight into Sunday morning, moving over eastern areas of Cuba, kind of gliding over Cuba, hitting Miami as a low-end tropical storm as early as Tuesday morning, then getting off the coast of the southeast, began to strengthen, then makes landfall just north of Charleston as a pretty strong tropical storm Wednesday morning, and then kind of works its way into North Carolina. Who knows? Could be a scenario. Yeah, I'm not going to definitely say that's not a scenario. Now, let me see. The latest, let's see if the 18Z is coming in. So, we might have a little bit of, no, it's not. 18Z is not in, so we're going to stick with the 12Z HWRF model. It's the official hurricane model. 18Z is coming in now. This is showing Sunday morning. It's strengthening in between Cuba and Jamaica. You got a 989 storm into the late morning hours of Sunday. It's a strengthening storm. This is, if we're taking this as if it's going to happen, we have this back to a hurricane between Cuba and Jamaica potentially, especially if it kind of fits in between it and that center of low-level circulation stays over water. Makes landfall in Cuba, makes a second landfall in Cuba, then really just rides and glides over Cuba. Gets back over water, starts to affect and really starts thrashing the Florida Keys. That's why the Florida Keys has a tropical storm watch now. And really the entire state of Florida, especially really almost the entire state of Florida as we're getting into Tuesday afternoon, is really getting hit by Elsa's bad side of this storm, and definitely getting a lot of tropical bands that could potentially be a tornado threat in Florida. We'll have to watch that. Then it makes landfall just south of Tampa, glides over the entire peninsula of Florida, gets into Georgia, and the storm actually maintains some strength. But if this was to happen, this would throw a lot of tropical moisture into Georgia, into the Carolinas, and create some breezy conditions. It actually has a storm strengthening over North Carolina, kind of a weird scenario. As far as shear, listen, this storm is going to be dealing with shear until it's dead and gone. It's going to be fighting off shear, but there's going to be an opportunity in the Gulf of Mexico where I think it'll only have about, 15, 20 knots of shear. And it could potentially intensify a little bit in the eastern Gulf. Despite what models are saying, the Gulf of Mexico is warm enough. There's going to be some light shear. There's going to be a couple other factors too. But I really think that if this thing is west enough in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, that we could have some strengthening. So, got to watch that, because if it happens, then it puts the southeast, like obviously the panhandle of Florida, the entire northern end of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas at more play for impacts by this tropical system for sure. So we got to watch that out. So that's pretty much all I got. This thing is it's trucking along. she's moving fast. I tell you what, she's starting to slow down, but I will tell you, she has exceeded expectations as far as speed, and honestly, it's weakened her. And Elsa needs to slow down if she wants to remain a healthy Storm. And I think she will definitely slow down. I know I said that last night. I think everybody did. But I really think that she'll begin to slow down tonight. But she is going to be dealing with a lot of land masses, like she is right now with Haiti. And she's going to be dealing with Jamaica. But the big dog she's going to have to fight off is Cuba. Cuba is going to do a number on Elsa, like it does to a lot of tropical systems. But we'll see. Very interesting next 12 to 18 hours that really decides the future of Elsa. So that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all stay tuned to the latest forecast and stay tuned to the experts at the National Hurricane Center. They'll keep you covered, and thank y'all for the amazing support. Y'all have a blessed night.